Hey guys, let's look at a few questions today. The first question that I'd like to look at today is, what is masculinity? Sometimes I feel it's good to get back to basics. Masculinity is actually kind of hard to define. If you've ever tried to do it yourself, you know. It is one of those things that we recognize when we see it, though, even though maybe we have a hard time putting it into words. I'm going to reject out of hand the deconstructionist and postmodern view that masculinity just happens to be whatever I decide it is and whatever I say it is. Instead, I'm going to begin with the assumption that despite various cultural expressions of masculinity, it has certain objective characteristics that everybody recognizes. That is, there is an objective content and quality to masculinity that everybody knows. All right? Again, we all know it when we see it. Otherwise, superhero movies would not be the blockbusters that they are. The fact that we all respond to Spider-Man or the Marvel Universe shows us we all recognize and accept certain masculine characteristics as being valuable and admirable. Okay? I'll help us sketch this out just a little bit. And for this, I'd like to turn to Jack Donovan and his distinction between being a good man and being good at being a man, because I think this can help us out here. Jack says this in his book, The Way of Men. Being a good man has to do with ideas about morality, ethics, religion, and behaving productively within a given civilizational structure. Being a good man may or may not have anything to do with the natural role of men in a survival scenario. It is possible to be a good man without being particularly good at being a man. On the other hand, being good at being a man is about being willing and able to fulfill the natural role of men in a survival scenario. Being good at being a man is about showing other men that you are the kind of guy they'd want on their team if the shit hits the fan. Being good at being a man isn't a quest for moral perfection. It's about fighting to survive. Good men admire and respect bad men when they demonstrate strength, courage, mastery, or a commitment to the men of their own renegade tribes. A concern with being good at being a man is what good guys and bad guys all have in common. Okay? So I would like to suggest that masculinity is, as Jack Donovan says, being good at being a man. I'd suggest further that masculinity is what men want from other men. It also includes what women want from a man. We would be leaving the borders of masculinity undefined if we did not consider what women want and leave them out of the picture. But for our purposes right now, we're going to bracket that. And I'd like just to focus on what it is men want from other men. Or, if you prefer, we could say, what do men find admirable in another man? Okay, we can put it that way too. By way of contrast, we can say easily what we don't want from other men, or what we don't find admirable in them. And if we're honest, we're talking about ourselves here because we do not like these qualities when we see them in ourselves. I'm talking about things like weakness or anxiety, indecisiveness, inability to plan or follow through, lack of direction, lack of integrity, instability, moodiness, and uselessness. Those we do not want to see in others, and we hate them when we find them in ourselves. So what do we want from other men? What we do find admirable, and ultimately what we want for ourselves, is going to look a lot like the opposite of those negative qualities I just enumerated. So let's consider a few of them here. The first place, physicality or strength. Physicality is the presence that men embody that is exactly what it sounds like. It's physical. It is physical confidence that comes from being healthy, fit, and strong. It's the poise that comes from mastering your own body. It is size and strength. Everybody knows what this looks like. It's the evident in the main character of every male action movie out there. As I say, we all know it when we see it. Physicality is essential for us if we're going to protect ourselves and others. A man that cannot protect himself cannot provide for himself. A man who carries himself well, who is comfortable in his own body, is undeniable by his presence, and regardless of what he's wearing or the environment that he finds himself in. Okay, physicality and strength. Next, decisiveness. Men that make decisions and do so with conviction are regarded as leaders. Why is that? Because a decision represents the ability to impose order in the face of chaos. This is why decisiveness is a characteristic of effective leadership. And a footnote, for those of us of Christian persuasion, bringing order out of chaos is the very act of creation. And when we bring order out of chaos in any aspect of our life, we're participating with God in creating the world and making it a better place. This is why adding value to anybody, why any sort of creation, why any cleaning up of chaos or taking care of disorder or trashiness in our life is always a positive step. Okay. To lead is to weigh and to consider and then to choose. To be decisive is to choose with courage. Courage is an active manifestation of making choices from a position of power and confidence. Men that are indecisive, they are not looked upon as leaders. Men that have a hard time choosing for themselves or figuring out what they want always look immature. So decisiveness is a second characteristic. Assertiveness. To be assertive is to be proactive, which is one of the most obvious traits of masculinity. He's making his move. He goes after what he wants. That guy gets shit done. All of these statements carry the physical element of movement and momentum. Assertiveness is a controlled expression of aggression. Men create momentum. Men go after what they want. Men that are assertive are assumed to be good at handling chaos. So they make everybody around them feel just a little bit safer, which is especially important to women. Men that are non-assertive are usually regarded as beta men, passive men, low energy types. They don't appear dependable. They are often given less responsibility, and they are certainly not looked upon as authorities or as role models. So that's assertiveness. Calmness, or cool. Calmness is mental stability and focus in the face of chaos. And by chaos, I also mean in the face of women's emotions as well. Okay? To be calm, you have to be in control of yourself. Men that are calm are relied upon. Men that are nervous and antsy are not. Calmness is a characteristic of mastery. And I'll tell you, 3 of the most beautiful words you can say to a woman are, I got this. Okay? Being calm and cool in the face of difficulty or anxiety or chaos. Especially in competition, the need to keep a calm mind to stay cool is a prerequisite for high performance. Nervous men are neurotic and are never heroes. All right? Other characteristics of masculinity that we could talk about include things like productivity. Okay? Boys are dependent and consume more than they produce, in contrast to men who produce more than they consume, and they're independent. Okay? Men have to produce more than they consume. That's how they're able to provide for other people around them. Okay? We could talk about passion and intensity. We could talk about indomitability, that is the quality of never backing down, of never quitting, of never getting up, never giving up, of always getting back up again every time you get knocked down, getting right back up and back into the fight. We could talk about consistency, the ability to grind day in and day out, regardless of setbacks, regardless of what life throws in your way, regardless of how you're feeling that day. You still get up and grind at what you need to get done. We could talk about depth, and we could certainly talk about authenticity. All right, men who are able to speak straight from the shoulder truth, as opposed to guys who just sort of rely on their feelings all the time. you know. All right. What characteristics of masculinity have I left out? I know there's many more that we could talk about. Drop a few of them in the comments below if you've a mind to.